The other day, I completely ruined this mix. Listen to these guitars. That's the sound of reamped quads that were supposed to make this mix sound huge. Instead, they ended up sounding lifeless, gutted, and hollow. But after rethinking my approach, I got them to sound like this. And when I sent it to the artist, they absolutely loved it. Today, I'm going to show you how I saved this mix, step by step with every plugin and technique that I used to get it to slam. But first, let me set the stage. I was working on a mid-tempo, grooving deathcore song that needed a massive wall of guitars. You know the sound. And the best way to get that is to quad track the guitars. And no, quad tracking isn't just copy-pasting your left and right guitars to new tracks and changing the tone. It's recording 4 tight, separate takes of guitar performances and layering them for ultimate thickness. Now, the good news was, my main tone was killer. And if you watch the pro reamping video that I did, you've already heard it. It's tight, scooped, and brutal. So my plan was to get some aggressive mid-range from the quads. So I reamped a second pair of DIs to accomplish what I was after. The plan was solid, the execution seemed perfect, but the second I brought those reamped quads into the session, the whole mix imploded. Let me show you. Here's the main tone soloed. Sick. Now here's the reamped quads. Now listen to them together. Do you hear that? The whole guitar bus just deflates. It gets smaller, not bigger. I was so frustrated. So much time spent choosing mics, shooting out pedals, turning knobs, all to be thrown in the garbage. But I'll let you in on a little secret. I've been here before. As a matter of fact, when you boil it down, mixing is just musical problem solving. Now, the one thing that saved this mix, I still had the DI tracks for all the guitars. That means I could reamp the guitars again. Reamp? But before I did that, I had an idea. I remembered that we were all really stoked on the tracking tone. It was done with an amp sim, but everybody loved it. It sounded like this. It had that dark, angry mid-range that I really wanted for this quad tone. So what would happen if I used that for the quads? Well, this is what happened. It was perfect. It was exactly what I was looking for. And the only reason I was able to do that is because I had a high-quality DI to work with. And by the way, if you want to know how to record a high-quality DI at home, I have a free guide called the Axe Tracking Blueprint. There's a link in the description. It's free. Go grab it. All right, we're not out of the woods yet. I still needed to make this tone work in the mix. So let's head over to the DAW, and I'll show you exactly how I did it. All right, so we got those ugly reamp tones muted here, and we have the new ones up here. Let me show you how I treated all the guitars. All right, the first thing we're doing to the main rhythms is we're putting up some EQ. We're high passing at about 80 hertz. We're low passing a little bit under 8K. We're cutting some of the mids at 500 and about 800 and a little bit over 2K and a little bit above 4K. We're getting rid of some of the fizz. So here's what it sounds like without the EQ. And this is with the EQ. The next thing in the chain is a multiband compressor that's set at about 200 hertz, and that's just going to duck the guitars every time we hear palm mutes, just to clean up some of the mud. Before. After. The next thing in the chain is another EQ plugin, and there's a reason why I didn't just make this move on the EQ that's already there. Every time you change a setting on a plugin, you're affecting all the plugins that are after it in the chain. Let's say I'm finished mixing my bass, but it sounds like it could use a little bit more low end. If I make that boost on this EQ that's first in the chain, that's going to affect how hard it's hitting this limiter and how hard it's hitting this compressor. So for me, I never revisit old moves. So let's get back to these guitars. These guitars sounded a little bright, so I put a little bit of a low shelf on them just to take some of the top end off. Before. After. The last thing in the chain is just a gain plugin to get the guitars at the volume that I wanted to without using a fader. I like having my faders at 0 before automation, it just makes things easier. All right, now let's check out these quads. For the quads, I put an EQ before the amp sim just to treat the DI. So we're cutting off everything under 200 Hertz and everything above just under 8K. We're also cutting some mids. This is what it sounds like without the DI treatment. And this is with it on. For the actual tone, I'm using the Omega Granifier. I have the pedal on, I have the head on, I have a little bit of EQ, but as you notice, the cabinet is off. And that's because I inserted a different cabinet, and that is the Archetype Nolly Mesa style cab. After that tone was dialed in, we cleaned it up again with a high pass and low pass filter, dipping a little bit of the mids and cutting a little bit of the harshness in 2K and 4K. Before, after. And here's both sets of guitars together. All right, we're almost done. Now we're going to put the finishing touches on these guitars. So the output of all 4 of these tracks are getting routed to this bus here, which is going to allow us to treat all of these guitars as one unit. The first plugin I'm using here is Renaissance Axe, which is absolutely outstanding at getting aggression out of the guitars. Here's what it sounds like before and after. The next plugin is the Citral Clang Filter, and what I'm doing here is I'm boosting some lows and I'm cutting some highs. Here's before after. This next plugin is my secret weapon on guitar buses. This is the wow thing. It's making the guitars a little bit extra wide, and it's just kind of a nicerizer on guitars. I have it blended in only about 10%, but listen to the before and after. Here's before. After. After that, we have the DS EQ, which is essentially a soothe-like plugin that's getting rid of some of the harshness up top in the guitars. Before. After. Another EQ here. We're doing a low pass and a high pass and a mid cut. Let's hear what it sounds like before. After. And again, the gain plugin to bring it back to 0. So after all that tweaking, did it actually work? Let's find out. Here's the full mix again with my original reamped weak guitars. Listen for how weak and hollow it sounds. And here's the new guitars with all the moves we made. The difference is staggering, right? I mean, it's not even a contest. These guitars are now one unified, massive wall of sound. The hole is gone, there's weight, there's clarity, and there's aggression. Now, if you want to see how I dialed in the main tone for this song, watch this video next. I go through all the details. I'll see you there. Thanks for watching.